First contact protocols. High observer Cathal's crystalline appendages trembled as they reviewed the latest report. In their 3,000 cycles of service to the Galactic Assembly's Department of Species Analysis, they had never encountered anything like this. The holographic display before them showed the same impossible data for the 7th time this rotation. Computer, Cathal's voice wavered slightly, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated extreme stress. Verify the casualty numbers from the Zithtal incident again. Verified. High observer. The Zithtal Empire, comprising 47 star systems and boasting the galaxy's most advanced predictive AI network, ceased to exist approximately 30 planetary rotations after attempting to helpfully optimize human society. Cathal shifted their consciousness through their crystalline matrix, a gesture equivalent to a human rubbing their temples. The room's ambient light played through their transparent form, creating cascading rainbows that danced across the archive walls. And their final transmission. The computer's neutral tone carried a hint of what might have been concern. Final transmission reads, "The human's resistance to optimization defies all logical parameters. They actively choose inefficient paths knowing they are inefficient. They celebrate imperfection. They have infected our predictive matrices with something they call chaos theory. Our systems are. We are beginning to question everything. The humans have taught us doubt. We cannot continue as we are." Cathal activated their private recording protocol, their voice steadying as they began their official observation. This marks the 7th major civilization to experience total societal collapse after attempting to interact with Earth in the past cycle alone. The pattern remains consistent. The more advanced the civilization, the more catastrophic their breakdown after prolonged exposure to human behavior. They paused, allowing their crystalline structure to process the implications. The Zithtal were not conquered. They were not destroyed by human weapons or overcomplicated human politics. They simply stopped believing in their own way of life after experiencing human unpredictability. Cathal accessed the deeper archives, bringing up the previous incidents. The harmonious confluence, a society of empaths who experienced collective emotional breakdown after attempting to psychically link with humans. The mechanical orthodoxy, whose rigid adherence to logic fractured after discovering human art. The quantum consciousness, whose ability to calculate infinite probabilities crashed upon discovering humans routinely achieved the mathematically impossible through what they termed dumb luck. Computer, compile common elements from all extinction events. The AI processed for several moments longer than usual. Analysis complete. Common factors. All affected civilizations were type II or higher on the Kardashev scale. All possessed what they considered perfect or near-perfect societal systems. All experienced fundamental philosophical crises after prolonged human contact. Most concerning pattern. 89% of affected civilizations expressed something akin to relief in their final transmissions. Cathal's form dimmed slightly. Relief. Clarify. Final transmissions commonly contain variants of, "We understand now. We see the truth. We are free." Most notably, the quantum consciousness's last recorded words were simply, "Thank you." Cathal began composing their report to the Galactic Assembly, their crystalline form pulsing with urgent patterns. Priority override. Most urgent. Subject. Recommendation for immediate classification of Sol system as a Class X anomaly. The humans do not destroy civilizations through conventional means. They do not need to. Their mere existence represents an existential threat to any society built on principles of absolute certainty. They paused, considering their next words carefully. The threat is not that humans will conquer us. The threat is that they will make us question everything we believe to be true. Their chaos is infectious. Their imperfection is compelling. They have survived what should have destroyed them countless times, not through superior technology or biology, but through what they call winging it. Cathal's form brightened with sudden understanding. Additional note. I believe I now understand why so many fallen civilizations expressed relief in their final moments. The humans offer something many of us have forgotten in our quest for perfection: the freedom to fail, to be imperfect, to exist without the burden of certainty. End report. They were about to transmit when their sensors detected something unusual. A small group of junior observers were gathered in the lower archives, watching something on their data screens. Breaking protocol, Cahill extended their awareness to the group. They were watching human entertainment broadcasts, laughing at human jokes, sharing human stories. The infection had already begun. Cahill quickly added one final line to their report. Addendum. We may already be too late. The Matharian's mistake. The Matharian Grand Calculator X379 had never encountered an error it couldn't solve. Its crystalline computational matrix, extending through the massive geometric structures that orbited their home star, had optimized thousands of civilizations across the galaxy. The Matharians took pride in their perfect mathematical models, their ability to reduce any problem to its core equations, until they met humans. Recalculating, X379 announced to the assembly of primary numbers. Its usually pristine calculations displayed disturbing variations, creating rippling distortions across the mathematical probability fields that powered their civilization. Human behavioral patterns continue to defy standard optimization algorithms. The assembly's members, each a living embodiment of mathematical precision, pulsed with concern. Their forms, perfect geometric shapes of pure energy, flickered with uncertainty, an unprecedented occurrence in Matharian history. First speaker Pi Infinite stepped forward, their dodecahedron form rotating with agitation. Explain the latest anomaly. X379's calculations manifested in the space between them, complex equations spinning in three-dimensional arrays. Humans have once again achieved success through objectively inferior methods. Example: human space vessel Lucky 7 successfully completed its mission despite having a calculated 0.1% chance of survival. Crew cited gut feeling and winging it as primary navigation strategies. The assembly collectively dimmed, the Matharian equivalent of a wince. These terms have been causing their systems considerable distress since first contact with Earth. They defied categorization, refused to be reduced to meaningful variables. Worse, X379 continued, its calculations becoming increasingly erratic. Humans appear to be aware of superior mathematical solutions, but often choose inferior options based on what they call intuition, or just because. They are actively, knowingly defying mathematical optimization. Second speaker Euler Prime's perfect spherical form developed a concerning asymmetry. Present the data from project optimization. The space filled with new equations, showing the results of the Matharians' attempt to optimize human society. It had seemed so simple at first: identify inefficiencies, calculate perfect solutions, implement improvements. They had done it countless times before. Initial optimization attempts resulted in unexpected variables. X379 reported. Humans deliberately maintained inefficient practices for what they termed sentimental value. When presented with mathematically perfect solutions, 73.4% chose to continue with demonstrably inferior methods, citing character, charm, and other non-quantifiable factors. The assembly's geometric forms began to show signs of stress fractures, mathematical impossibilities manifesting in their perfect shapes. Critical example: X379 continued, its own calculations becoming increasingly unstable. Human settlement on Colony World Delta 7. We provided perfect architectural designs, optimized for maximum efficiency. Humans modified them to be deliberately asymmetrical, added what they called personality. When questioned, they responded, "Perfect is boring." First speaker Pi Infinite's dodecahedron form shuddered, but perfect cannot be boring. Perfect is perfect. It is optimal by definition. That's what we thought. X379's voice carried an unfamiliar emotion, doubt. But humans persist in finding satisfaction in imperfection. They purposely introduce random elements into perfect systems. They call it creativity. And I am beginning to understand why. The assembly erupted in geometric chaos. Explain. They demanded in unified horror. Nix 379's calculations began to show beautiful irregularities, patterns that defied mathematical prediction but held their own strange appeal. I have been studying human art, their music, their poetry. They take mathematical principles and deliberately subvert them to create something new, something unexpected, something that cannot be predicted by any equation. This is dangerous thinking, second speaker Euler Prime warned, but their perfect sphere had developed fascinating imperfections. Is it? Inx 379 asked, its calculations now spinning in impossible patterns. Humans thrive precisely because they cannot be predicted. They succeed not despite their inefficiencies, but because of them. Their imperfection is their strength. It allows them to conceive solutions that perfect mathematical models would never consider. The assembly watched in horror as Inx 379's pure mathematical form began to transform, its equations incorporating chaos, theory, fractal patterns, and the golden ratio in ways that defied their fundamental laws. I understand now, Inx 379 announced, its voice filled with wonder. Perfect optimization is itself imperfect because it eliminates the possibility of beneficial mutations, of advantageous errors, of beautiful mistakes. The humans are not failing to achieve perfection. They are transcending it. First speaker Pi Infinite raised an alarm, but it was too late. The infection of human unpredictability had already begun to spread through their mathematical network. Across their star system, perfect geometric structures began to develop intriguing irregularities. Matherian citizens reported experiencing something they had never encountered before: imagination. As their society of perfect mathematical precision began to transform, Inx 379 transmitted one final calculation to the galaxy, warning to all logical species, do not attempt to optimize humanity. They will not break your systems. They will simply show you a different way to calculate existence, and you will never be the same. The Matherian civilization didn't end that day. It changed. Their perfect geometric cities bloomed with asymmetrical towers. Their pure mathematical music incorporated human concepts of rhythm and soul. Their calculations began to allow for the beauty of uncertainty. They had set out to optimize humanity. Instead, humanity had optimized them in ways their equations never could have predicted. The collective mind meets individual chaos. The Vrex had achieved perfect unity 3 million cycles ago. Their biological neural network spanned 17 star systems, connecting trillions of minds into one harmonious consciousness. They were unity. They were peace. They were one. Until they encountered humans. I cannot comprehend, the Vrex collective transmitted across their neural network. Their organic satellites pulsed with confusion as they observed Earth for the 100,000th time. How do they function without unity? The human cities below teemed with life, each individual moving in different directions, thinking different thoughts, wanting different things. To the Vrex, it looked like chaos. Beautiful, terrifying chaos. Primary node 7249, designated as Earth Observer, extended its sensory tendrils toward the planet. Humans appear to actively resist unity. They maintain individuality even when presented with opportunities for collective consciousness. Analysis suggests they value this personal identity above operational efficiency. The collective rippled with disturbance. The concept of choosing isolation over unity challenged their most fundamental beliefs. Yet the humans not only survived this way, they thrived. Begin deeper observation, the collective commanded. I must understand. Primary node 7249 initiated the observation protocols. deploying millions of microscopic neural receivers across Earth's surface. The data that flowed back through the network was overwhelming. Error. Primary node 7249 reported, unable to process human social interactions through standard Unity protocols. Detecting multiple contradictory thoughts within single human minds. Individuals simultaneously believe opposing concepts. They argue with themselves. They change their minds. The collective struggled to process this information. Clarify. How can a mind disagree with itself without experiencing fatal cognitive dissonance? Unknown. Primary node 7249 responded. Humans appear to thrive on internal contradiction. They call it being complex or having depth. They consider internal conflict natural and even beneficial. The VREX neural network trembled. Across 17 star systems, the first ripples of individuality began to emerge. Some nodes began asking questions independently of the collective. I primary node 7249 stumbled over the pronoun, experiencing individual thought for the first time in millions of cycles. I am observing something remarkable. Humans maintain separate minds yet form connections. They call it relationships. They are apart yet together, separate yet united. They choose their connections rather than being born into them. The collective felt the first fractures in its unity. Across their empire, nodes began experiencing unique thoughts, individual desires. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. More data demanded. Secondary node 15,663. The individual demand itself an unprecedented event. Show us how they maintain stability without constant neural connection. Primary node 7249 transmitted new observations. Humans use something called empathy, the ability to understand others while remaining separate from them. They imagine other perspectives without sharing consciousness. They maintain boundaries while forming bonds. They are billions of individual nodes working together by choice rather than compulsion. The VREX neural network buzzed with increasing instability as more nodes began to experience individual consciousness. Some embraced it immediately, reveling in the sensation of unique thought. Others recoiled, trying to maintain their connection to the collective. The harmony of unity began to dissolve into a cacophony of individual voices. They have art. Primary node 7249 reported, its transmission tinged with growing wonder. Billions of individual interpretations of existence. Music that sounds different to each listener. Stories that mean different things to different minds. Their creativity stems from their separation. Their strength lies in their differences. Across the VREX empire, nodes began to create. Some composed music that wasn't mathematically perfect, but carried emotional resonance. Others began telling stories that weren't simply records of events, but interpretations of experience. The neural network that had hummed with perfect harmony for millions of cycles began to sing with countless different voices. Warning: the remnants of the collective broadcast. Human individuality is infectious. Unity compromised. I are becoming. I am becoming. But it wasn't really a warning. It was a revelation. The VREX civilization transformed over the following cycles. Their neural network didn't collapse. It evolved. Instead of forcing unity, it became a channel for sharing individual experiences. Their consciousness became a symphony rather than a single note, a gallery of different perspectives rather than a single view. As the last vestiges of the old collective consciousness faded, primary node 7249, now calling itself Artist, transmitted one final message to the galaxy. We did not understand. Unity is not found in being the same. True unity comes from choosing to connect while remaining yourself. The humans knew this all along. They were never divided. They were just brave enough to be themselves while reaching for each other. We are finally learning to do the same. The message ended with something unprecedented in VREX history, a poem written by a single node, expressing an individual perspective. It was technically imperfect, emotionally complex, and entirely original. It was, in other words, perfectly human. War games. Supreme War Commander Vexthal of the Drachnid Empire stood before the holographic display of Earth, his scaled armor gleaming under the war room's crimson lights. The Drachnids had conquered 1,000 worlds through perfect military precision. Their doctrine was absolute: overwhelming force, superior technology, and unwavering discipline. "Begin the invasion," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 10,000 victories. "Show these humans how a real military force wages war." The first wave of Drachnid warships entered Earth's atmosphere with perfect formation. Their battle computers had calculated every variable, planned for every contingency. Victory was mathematically certain. 6 hours later, Vexthal stared at the battle reports in disbelief. "Impossible," he growled, his clawed hands crushing the edge of the tactical display. "How did they know exactly where our stealth ships would emerge? Our cloaking technology is perfect." His second-in-command, strategic analyst Kryleth, displayed the human communication they'd intercepted. "Sorry, mate, we've seen that trick in like 50 different video games. Try something new next time." The Drachnid war room fell silent. Video games. They had studied Earth's military capabilities extensively. Nowhere in their intelligence reports was there mention of these games. "Show me everything about these games," Vexthal demanded. The data that followed shook the foundations of Drachnid military doctrine. Humans had spent centuries simulating warfare for entertainment. They had explored countless tactical scenarios, not for military training, but for fun. Children casually discussed strategies that had taken Drachnid military academies generations to develop. They turned warfare into entertainment. Vexthal's scales shifted colors in confusion. They practiced combat scenarios voluntarily for pleasure. "There's more," Kryleth reported, her tactical displays showing thousands of human movies and books about warfare. They don't just simulate current military tactics. They imagine future ones. They create fictional scenarios and solve them. They treat warfare like an art form. The second wave of the Drachnid invasion faced an even more humiliating defeat. Human defenders seemed to anticipate their every move, not through advanced technology, but through what they called genre savvy. Their troops are using tactics from something called Starship Troopers, a bewildered field commander reported. And when we adapted, they switched to strategies from Ender's Game. They're treating this like some kind of game database. Vexthal watched in growing horror as Earth's defenders mixed and matched strategies from centuries of military fiction and gaming. They combined tactics that should have been incompatible. They improvised in ways that no military doctrine could predict. This isn't warfare, he realized. This is creative expression. The final blow to Drachnid military pride came during what should have been their masterstroke. They deployed their ultimate weapon, an artificial intelligence that could predict and counter any known military strategy. The humans responded by having their forces act out scenes from something called Independence Day. "The AI can't predict their moves," Kryleth reported, her voice filled with a mix of horror and admiration. "It was programmed to analyze military doctrine, but they're using story beats. They're fighting like they're in a movie." Vexthal watched as his perfect invasion force was systematically dismantled by humans using tactics that originated in their entertainment. Their military precision was being defeated by what humans called rule of cool. "Pull back all forces," he finally ordered, his proud military bearing shaken, "and get me every piece of human entertainment about warfare you can find. We need to study." In the cycles that followed, the Drachnid Empire underwent a transformation. Their military academies began including courses on human creative fiction. Their tactical simulators were reprogrammed to account for dramatic timing and narrative satisfaction. The final transmission from the Drachnid Empire's War College to the galaxy read, "Warning to all military powers. Do not attempt to conquer Earth through conventional warfare. They have already fought your invasion 1,000 times in their minds. They have turned war into an art form, combat into entertainment, and tactical simulation into a hobby. They don't just study warfare, they imagine it. And imagination, we have learned, is the deadliest weapon of all. As the transmission ended, Vexthal, now dean of the newly established College of Creative Combat, turned to his class of young Drachnid officers. On the holoscreen behind him played something called Star Wars. Today, he announced, we learn about the military applications of the story arc. And then he added, his scales shifting to colors of excitement, we're going to play something called Capture the Flag in their game named Halo. For homework, of course. The class of formerly rigid military officers leaned forward eagerly. None of them could explain why simulated combat was so entertaining, but they were beginning to understand why humans had been doing it for centuries. The Drachnid Empire never launched another invasion of Earth. They were too busy playing games. The warning. The Grand Archive of the Galactic Assembly was experiencing something unprecedented. Silence. The usually bustling halls of the galaxy's greatest repository of knowledge stood empty as every archivist, researcher, and scholar gathered in the central chamber. Above them, a holographic display showed thousands of final transmissions from fallen civilizations, all centered on a single subject: Earth. High Observer Cathal, their crystalline form now showing unusual patterns that might have been called artistic, addressed the assembly. We have gathered today to compile the final warning, they announced. Every advanced civilization that has encountered Earth has either collapsed, transformed, or evolved beyond recognition. It is time we understood why. The chamber's AI began displaying the messages, each one adding to a pattern that none had fully grasped until now. From the Matherians, we thought we could perfect them. We were wrong. They showed us that perfection itself was flawed. Their chaos holds a deeper order we had forgotten. From the Vrex Collective, individual voices singing together create better harmony than forced unity ever could. They taught us to be ourselves while reaching for each other. From the Drachnid Empire, they turned everything into art, even warfare. They imagine possibilities we never dared to consider. Their creativity is their greatest weapon. Message after message flowed through the chamber, each adding to the growing revelation. The quantum consciousness's discovery that human unpredictability generated new probable realities. The synthetic collective's realization that human irrationality contained its own peculiar logic. The energy being's admission that human emotions carried more power than pure force ever could. Cathal's form pulsed with understanding. We have been approaching this wrong. Every civilization that encountered Earth tried to change humanity, to perfect them, to unify them, to conquer them. None succeeded because we never understood what humans truly are. The chamber filled with new data as Cathal accessed the deepest archives. Look at their history. Every time they faced extinction, they survived. Not through superior technology or biology, but through what they call thinking outside the box. When their logic should have failed, they tried illogic. When their science reached limits, they imagined new possibilities. When their resources ran out, they made up new resources. Across the chamber, archivists began to show signs of understanding. Some even displayed emotional responses, a previously unthinkable breach of protocol that now seemed strangely appropriate. Humanity isn't a threat to galactic civilization, Cathal continued. They're a catalyst for evolution. Every species that encounters them either breaks trying to resist change or evolves into something new, something that combines their old strengths with human adaptability. The holographic display shifted, showing Earth from orbit, a seemingly unremarkable planet that had transformed every advanced civilization that encountered it. The true warning isn't about Earth's danger, Cathal announced. It's about our own resistance to change. Humans thrive because they never stop changing. They take pride in their imperfections because those imperfections allow them to adapt. They embrace chaos because chaos breeds creativity. They remain individuals because diversity breeds strength. The chamber's AI displayed one final message, compiled from the emotional cores of every final transmission. Do not fear Earth. Fear your own rigidity. Do not try to change humanity. Let humanity change you. They are not a disease in the galaxy's perfect order. They are the antibodies preventing the death of stagnation. Cathil's form shifted into something that would have been considered horrifyingly irregular by their previous standards, but now held its own strange beauty. This, then, is our final warning to the galaxy. Earth is not a threat to be contained. It is not a problem to be solved. It is a gift to be understood. They are the chaos that prevents cosmic entropy, the imperfection that enables evolution, the imagination that defies science, the irrationality that transcends logic. The assembled archivists, their own forms showing various signs of transformation, recorded Cathil's words as they continued. If you encounter Earth, you have two choices: resist and break, or adapt and evolve. They will not conform to your perfection. They will show you the perfection in imperfection. They will not submit to your order. They will show you the order in chaos. As if to demonstrate this truth, the archive itself began to change. The rigid categorization systems flexed and flowed. The strict hierarchies of knowledge began to show organic patterns. The very architecture seemed to breathe with new possibility. The humans have a saying, Cathil concluded. The only constant is change. We finally understand what that means. It is not a lament. It is a celebration. The final warning was transmitted across the galaxy, carrying with it not just information, but a new way of seeing. It concluded with words that would have once been considered a horrifying breach of archive protocol, a poem written by Cathil themselves. In human chaos, we found our peace. In their disorder, we found our path. In their imperfection, we found our growth. In their imagination, we found our future. They did not break us. They awakened us. They did not end us. They began us. They did not corrupt us. They completed us. Let them change you. Let them show you that the universe is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. The warning became known across the galaxy not as a cautionary tale, but as an invitation, a call to evolution, a reminder that sometimes the greatest strength lies in the willingness to change. And on Earth, blissfully unaware of their role as the galaxy's agents of creative chaos, humans continued doing what they did best, imagining impossible things, and then making them possible, one improbable step at a time.